This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. Patty Prewitt was, until recently, the longest-serving female prisoner in Missouri. Sentenced to prison for the murder of her husband, she spent 38 years maintaining her innocence, and finally, in late 2024, Missouri Governor Mike Parson commuted her sentence and allowed her to be released. As a prisoner, Prewitt was a prolific letter writer. Many of her messages were addressed to her 5 young children and to other family members who stood by her after she was convicted of killing her husband. Prewitt's missives paint a vivid picture of her life in prison, from the harassment she endured from male inmates to how she tried, despite many barriers, to be a mother present to her kids. The first 18 years of her letters are collected in the memoir, Trying to Catch Lightning in a Jar. It was published in the spring last year, several months after she was released. Since then, Prewitt has become a college graduate, a published author, and an advocate for better treatment of parents and children impacted by incarceration. Earlier this month, I sat down with her and her daughter, Jane Prewitt Watkins, while they were visiting St. Louis ahead of a keynote engagement at a Women's History Month event. We spoke about her first year since her release, her letters, and the challenge of being a parent in prison. So, Patty, you entered prison in April of 1986, and Jane was 16 years old at the time. Did you have a plan for how you were going to be a parent to Jane and your 4 children?
I had no plans. I was living in denial. My husband was killed in 84. We went to trial in 85. I was out on appeal bond, and for somehow in my head, I didn't think I'd ever leave my children. So I was worthless. We lost the appeal, and I went to prison, left my children with my folks, who were empty nesters then and glad of it. And then they ended up with 5 kids. But no, I never made a plan.
Jane, the teen years already are a turbulent time. So what was it like for you to be facing the possibility of your mother not being home and in prison, no less, during that period?
Right. It was terrifying, honestly. And we lost our dad. And when we lost him, I was 14 during my freshman year. And then her trial was when I was 15 during my sophomore year. She left at the end of my junior year. So that's kind of my whole high school career was these events. And our small town was so supportive of us, and many people there believed in Mom. So they were pretty nice. But it wasn't until we moved to a bigger school at the end of my junior year that I had kids that were mean to me about it, and that caused pain. And I decided to drop out of school and take my GED at that point and help with my brothers and sisters and start working and going to community college.
Mm-hmm. What kind of support were you providing to your younger siblings?
Everything that I could try to help with at the time. I mean, from homework to everything. Everything I could do to help my grandparents or my aunt, whoever we were staying with. Because that first summer, there was a lot of just the family figuring out where we were going to be exactly. And so just everything. I mean, I was 16 and the youngest one was 8. So there was quite a bit of peeling potatoes and quite a bit of brushing teeth and washing faces still,
Patty, let's talk about your letters. Your book begins with one you wrote about a week after entering prison in 1986. And there's a lot of pain in that letter. You describe being strip searched for the first time and generally getting to know the fear and discomfort of just being in prison. And near the end of this letter, though, you have a line. It's, writing this has helped me feel a tiny bit more like Patty. What did you mean by that?
I think I had no one to tell. I didn't want to tell my friends and my family the horror that I was going through. I figured they had an idea, but I didn't want to make it any worse. So I wrote this, and I have found out that if I can write things, then I can work through them. That's how I ended up being a writer.
Was there something about making concrete the things that were in your head and on your heart and putting them on paper that created that connection that you needed for yourself?
Yes, and I think it's important. I've even told girls in prison, journal, because it will help you. And it's not just in prison, anywhere, anybody. It helps to journal your feelings.
Jane, what was it like to get letters, and messages from your mom?
Oh, it was so meaningful between our visits to get messages or phone calls. But the letters were really, we would pass them around. We would read them to each other. We would, and we've also raised our own children with these letters. So as my sons were growing up, there would always be a letter on the kitchen island that anybody could read if they wanted to feel more connected to their granny.
So there was a permanent place for these letters then.
Yeah, it was always to look forward to the mailbox and see what she had going on and how she was feeling. And somehow she had an ability to always make us feel better about our situation and about our connection and felt connected to her. Even if her letters were hard or there were bad things going on, we at least could know how to support her, how to lift her up.
And that's stretching over very many, many years.
Yes.
But Patty, I'd like to hear an excerpt from one of your letters that is from that earlier period. It's from May 10th, 1986, and it describes one of your first jobs in prison and an interesting strategy for coping.
And it's to my dear friend Mary. We were on the same co-ed volleyball team. She had a son the same age as my daughter Sarah. So it starts out, Dear Mary, I have a job in the kitchen now, 7 days a week. Mostly I work in the dish room behind plexiglass. When an inmate shoves his or her eaten-off tray through the opening, my duty is to grab it, dump the remaining food into a big trash can, rinse the tray with a rubber sprayer hose, and stack it on its side in a rack that travels on a conveyor belt through a contraption that's much like a miniature car wash. Steamy and hopefully clean trays emerge from the other side. We stand on slippery wooden pallets, like the ones forklifts use to move squares of shingles to keep our feet out of the standing water. This dish room is like a sauna, but it's an honest job and good for my wounded heart. Instead of gently scraping the food off the tray, I've found that slamming it against the inside of the big rubber can is very effective and feels good. Wham! Therapy for my tremendous level of sorrow and frustration. There are male prisoners here who fish for girlfriends. They write notes and wrap them around cigarettes as bait. Who in prison could ignore a free pack of cigarettes? They wink and smile suggestively as they slide their trays hopefully through to me. And I let them see that I spy their offering of message-wrapped smokes, then slam! The contents of the tray are spattered against the side of my slop can. I care nothing about their messages or gifts. I only want to mindlessly and vigorously slap trays, and after lunch, throw chairs up on the table so I can swab the expanse of painted concrete floor with a giant string mop. I want to wear myself out so I can somehow sleep the sound, untortured sleep of the bone-weary. My goal is to numb the pain of my broken heart, if only for a while.
As I hear you read this, I think about how early in the time that you served it was written. I imagine what your voice would have sounded like at that time. Was the physicality of that work, Patty, helpful for you? I mean, you describe it that way, but that method of coping and also sending a very direct message to those who were propositioning you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That prison was co-ed, which nowadays people can't even imagine. But they said it was an experiment. And I didn't know any better because I had just landed in prison and I'm trying to figure out the lingo and whatever's going on. But I, at that point, liked physical jobs. I was young, I needed to expend that physicality somehow. And not long after I had that job, I ended up mowing. And that was good, too.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that stands out here is your sense of humor. So I got a little bit of that when I first met you before coming in to start this conversation. But was a sense of humor also something that you remembered of your mother, Jane?
Oh, yes, always, always. Mom's a very funny human. She just is. And she has this great laugh, which turns out I have the same laugh. And that has just served us well, that we're both quick to laugh, I feel like, and can find the humor in even the darkest of situations. And I think I got that a lot from her because she's always been able to laugh even when something seems horrible, and dark. And sometimes maybe people look at us like, why is that funny to those two? But it's the way to get through it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Jane, the letter that your mother just read, the excerpt, it was not addressed to you. Were some of these letters in the book new to you when the book came out last year?
Yeah, I think when we were compiling things, it was lots of them were new to me, or I had heard the dumbed down version like you tell your children. I can't imagine that she was telling me that there were men flirting with her in that way, or about cigarettes or things like that. I don't think I got that story in our letter at that point. So it's interesting to see what she said to her friends over the years. And I'm so glad that she's had such good friends and family that she could write to and be honest about everything.
We need to take a quick break, but we'll be back shortly to continue listening to my conversation about Patty Prewitt's experience in prison and the letters she wrote during the 38 years she spent behind bars. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio. Welcome back. We're spending today's show listening to my conversation with Patty Prewitt. Her memoir, Trying to Catch Lightning in a Jar, collects the letters she sent during her first 18 years in Missouri prisons. She was released in late 2024 after serving almost 4 decades and continues to maintain she is innocent of the 1984 murder that took her husband's life. I interviewed Patty Prewitt and her daughter, Jane Prewitt Watkins, earlier this month while they were in St. Louis for a speaking engagement. Before the break, Patty and Jane described what it was like to communicate through letters as mother and daughter during Patty's first years in prison. Let's return to that conversation. So after some time, eventually, there were visits to prison permitted, and your letters, Patty, describe these family visits as moments of joy, but also of heartbreak when those visits came to a close. How did you approach that as a parent? Were there things that you had to do or say in order to prepare yourself both for the start of those visits and when they ended?
And it's so hard. The first time my kids came to visit, and I'm waving goodbye to my parents and my kids, and we were standing out in front of the building, and next thing, I had passed out, and the girls on each side of me were pulling me into the building, and I realized that I had used every bit of myself to stay upright and smile goodbye to these people, and I'd used up all my goodie, but the 2 inmates next to me were very sweet, and they understood. They pulled me in, and we shake it off and go on.
In one of the letters you wrote, when we were told time was up, the kids howled like wounded animals. How did that feel, Jane? And you were with your younger siblings, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my grandparents, my mom's parents. There were many tearful drives home, and prisons are always far away, so you have to drive a long distance. And Mom's dad was a very good driver and a very good man, but he was a very quiet man. And he just wouldn't, he didn't say much. And Grandma would also cry. So it was like, us kids are crying, Grandma's crying, he's just driving. Sometimes he would turn on the radio just to try to distract us. So it was usually country music or something, But, and we would wear ourselves out. We would wake up in the driveway at the house. So we would cry ourselves to sleep in the car. I mean, it was a lot of crying. And even yesterday, we went to a play in the prison. And to be able to take her home with us again is so amazing. Like twice now she and I have gone to the prison yesterday with my husband and our Nina, and it was amazing for them to say it's time to go, and she gets to walk out with us, and we don't have that painful goodbye. It's still amazing. Yeah.
But at the same time, I felt survivor's guilt because I left the kids, those inmates, in.
Right.
So I had to turn kind of hard-heartedly and walk straight ahead and not turn back.
Right. Some of your letters, Patty, describe how you also set up a system with your kids so that you could have one-on-one time. Why was that so important to you?
I was a hands-on mama and hands-on aunt, for that matter. So when the kids came, we're a loud bunch, and we can talk over each other. But the kids needed a little bit of one-on-one because, like, when I was home and I'm doing dishes, I could have a kid next to me, and we could talk one-on-one. That's not happening in prison. So at that prison, they had a park bench off to the side. So I could tell one of the kids would be looking at me like, my turn. Mm-hmm. So we'd go over to the park bench and have a little conversation. And sometimes they'd rat on each other or, but it was important to have that time. And I could fix some problems, but I couldn't fix all of the problems. But every kid needs some one-on-one, whether it's their mama or their aunt.
Even if you couldn't fix the problem, though, you could comfort us. I mean, you knew all of us and your nieces and nephews enough and we did a lot of family visits where a lot of us were there, cousins, I mean, we were a close family.
So they were greedy for time with you, too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then it is no surprise that you, Patty, are also the author of a children's book that came out last week titled A Little Person Like You Whose Mommy Goes to Prison. How do your experiences and maybe the experiences of fellow mothers who were inmates show up in those pages?
And almost every woman in prison that I met was a mother or mothered someone. And most of our conversations, we were worried about our kids. So before I left prison, the summer before I left prison, I wrote this book. And one of my inmate friends, I forced her practically. I asked her to illustrate it. And we worked on it. And I showed it to one of my footies, the girl who lives at the foot of your bed, called Footy. And I showed it to her, and she started crying. Because she said when the police came and got her, they grabbed her 4 or 5-year-old daughter and terrorized her, pulled her out of the house, grabbed some things, put it in a trash bag, and no explanations, no counseling, no love, and separated them. And she said she had wished she had had a book like this to give her daughter to try to explain anything. And I used to talk to the girls when they first came to prison, and I would explain to them, don't lie to your kids, but tell them, the young ones, tell them it's big girl time out. Because most kids have been in a corner or they've been in timeout, so they can understand that. I said, then you're not scaring them. So that's what I put in this book. And my goal now is to get it into hands of the children who need it. And yesterday, oh my gosh, Elaine, yesterday there was a kid who came to the play. She hadn't seen her mama for years. and she's like 5. And when we walked out, I called her over to my car and gave her. And I said, I'll start crying over this, because I said, this book is from your mama. And this little girl, she looked at me so sweet, and she goes, from Mommy? I said, yes. She told me to give it to you, and it's for you. And she didn't smile. She had this look like, my mommy gave me this book. She looked kind of in wonder, and she went off with it. And it was the first actual kid that I got to give this book to, who this book was written for, kids like this child. And it was kind of a huge moment. If we were in a movie, it would have had big music, and because it was big to me.
Huge.
And now I'm like, okay, where's the next kid?
Mm-hmm. At 16, a children's book is not meant for a teenager.
Right.
But if you had had this book when your mom went to prison, what difference could it have made?
I think it would have made us all feel a lot less lonely. We didn't know anyone. Hardly even any of my friends had been, families had divorced. I mean, let alone somebody gone to prison. So we felt very, very alone in this situation. And if there'd been an actual book that looks like a book, I think we would have been like, oh, there's other people. And I do feel like even at 16, a counselor or someone could have used that book as a tool to. You can always work on your inner child. You can always work on things. Even if you're 16, you can see the merit of something like that, and especially when you're the oldest in a family, to see it for the kids. When Mom sent home the book, sent it to my house before she came out of prison, and I scanned in the illustrations, the whole book was moving to me.
We're listening today to my conversation with Patty Prewitt and her daughter, Jane Prewitt Watkins, about their experiences during Patty Prewitt's 38 years in Missouri prisons. So, Patty, you were released from prison just a few days before Christmas in December of 2024. That must have been really special. Take us back to that day. Did you have any idea, any clue that the governor was considering your case?
Well, we've been trying to get a governor to consider our case for almost 40 years. And Jane came to visit me that day. And the first thing she said when I got through the strip search area was, Brian, who's our attorney, he's been with us since he was a law student, he said, we don't think he's going to make any decisions, the governor, before Christmas. So it was like, get that out of the way. Now let's talk about family and Christmas. And we were just about an hour, maybe an hour and a half into the visit, and this gentleman comes over to us. The room's almost empty. He comes over to us, and I didn't know him at all. And he says, Patty, I need you to come with me. And I looked up at him because they don't use our first name. And come with me. And I said, we haven't done anything wrong. I get defensive. This is my kids. And because we've gotten in trouble for laughing too loudly, and we hadn't.
Oh, my goodness.
And we've gotten in trouble for sharing food, and we hadn't. And we've gotten in trouble for putting our feet up on the table a little bit, and we hadn't. And he goes, no, you're not in trouble. And I said, oh, that's what they always say. And I didn't know him, so he didn't know my sense of humor or anything. And I couldn't have a mini set-in in the prison. I mean, I have no power. So he said, Jane, and Jane looks up, and he goes, I need you both to come with me. And now Jane's thinking that she's going to be strip searched because there was a sign years ago that said visitors could be strip searched. Mm-hmm. And she's thinking, oh, I've been all these years, hadn't been strip searched, here it comes.
That's the door he wanted to take us through.
Oh.
Was
the
where
strip
she
search
comes out of
area.
the strip search area. So I really did think this is my day.
Yeah.
I'm getting strip searched. And so we were both nervous to go through with him, and he used our first names. So, I mean, that was odd too. But we went, and there was the warden and another officer. And,
Deputy warden.
and they said they were working on the clemency paperwork. And we were like, yeah, that's what's been going on for a long time. I mean, and then, but one of them kept smiling, the deputy warden. And we were like, oh, something good's happening, you know. But that's kind of how we were told, was that it was just, then they literally said you could say goodbye to 2 people. And she got to pick 2 people, and that's how we got the news that she was
That's how
leaving.
we figured out
that
we're-
day.
and Jane goes, is my face red? It couldn't have been redder.
I must have had a blood pressure incident or something. And
Oh,
I
my
don't have blood
goodness.
pressure issues, but I felt like I could see my heart outside of me, and I thought I'm going to explode. I mean, like, and then we got to say goodbye to 2 of her friends and sit in a room with them for a couple hours while they finished all the paperwork, and she left with me.
Out the front door.
Out the front
Out the
door.
front door.
Which is also unusual. But I had needed this ankle surgery, so I was limping, so the warden was being nice with us. And she also said when she saw that Mom was visiting with me, she knew I was the home plan.
Oh,
So
I see.
she was like, let's just get her out of here today and let her go home. And so they finished up all the paperwork from parole and probation and all the things they had to do on their end. And we're literally like in the parking lot of the prison going to call her attorney and call my husband and our family members, our siblings, our kids. I mean, we couldn't believe it.
And the voices are coming out of the windshield because I didn't understand how
Speakerphone.
the speakerphone thing.
Oh, right.
So I'm
right.
like, why did I hear these guys through the windshield? So I'm talking to the windshield.
So it was a huge surprise to both of us and all of our families. And by the next morning, everyone was at our house from wherever they lived in the country.
So Christmas came early. Like
Yeah.
38 years worth of Christmases.
Right.
And everybody dropped their jobs. One grandchild lives in Houston. She just drove to the airport and flew up to Kansas City. I mean, people just quit their jobs and it was homing pigeons, just homing pigeons.
I can't see how you would ever get tired of telling this story.
Oh, yeah. It was such a celebration.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, unbelievable. Just unbelievable. I mean, for everybody. And then we had to drive home so it's like three and a half hours that day took us to get home. And by the time we got there, everybody's at the house. They're jumping on her in the driveway. I mean, everybody was just in celebration mode. Completely.
And while we're driving, I kept reaching over to touch Jane. Is this real?
And then that night, I slept with her in the bed in the guest room,
yes. We
didn't
which is her
sleep.
room. We didn't sleep, and I would reach over and touch her.
Right,
like,
right.
is this real? Like, is she really beside me in my house?
Yeah. So not much sleep that first
No.
Not at all.
Yeah, right. So, Patty, tell us a little bit about where you're living now.
I'm living with Jane. In fact, I could live with any of my kids because most of them are empty nesters now, you know, and they've got places for me, and I love them all, and I've been at everybody's places and spent the night with everybody. But I do live with Jane in a little town outside of Kansas City, and it's I went to grade school in that town. It's a nice place. I'm walking. Jane and her husband have 2 toy Yorkies, and I'm there for them. I walk them. And they'll get mad if I'm busy because they're like, "You need to sit down."
And you've been very busy in this year. You've received a college degree. You went skydiving last
was
summer,
great.
Patty.
Yeah, it was
Tell us
great.
about that.
We drove. I have a friend who is in prison with me, and she has a dear friend who's a state legislator. And Senator Tracy McCreary, God bless her, had worked so hard to get me out. So we drove to Jeff City and met a whole bunch of legislators who worked for us. And Jane's on her knee scooter because she had her surgery. So on the way home, Jane has taken some pain pills. So she's in the back seat out of it. And Sammy and I were talking about things we wanted to do. And skydiving came up. I said, let's do it. So Jane's in the back and she goes, I know somebody. So we did it. And about a week before we went, Sammy texted me and she goes, are we really doing this? I said, Sammy, I put down a deposit. Yes. If I put down a deposit, we're doing it. Yeah. And it was great, but we're way high. And I said, are we over Kansas? Because I can't be over Kansas. I'm on parole. And the guy in the airplane, he's just laughing because he didn't think.
Oh, my goodness.
He didn't believe her.
He didn't believe that I was on parole.
Right.
And I said, oh, it's not just me. Sammy is too. And he just laughed about it. He didn't believe it till he got hit the ground, as it were. And he found out. Yeah.
As it were.
As it were,
that is
yeah.
the operative here. We need to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue listening to my conversation with Patty Prewitt, and we'll learn more about the challenges she faced during the decades she spent trying to prove her innocence. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio. Welcome back. Let's return to my conversation with Patty Prewitt. She spent 38 years in Missouri prisons before her release in 2024. I interviewed her and her daughter, Jane Prewitt Watkins, earlier this month. Before the break, we were talking about Prewitt's life after her release and how she was reunited with her family. To this day, Prewitt and her supporters say she is innocent of the murder of her husband in 1984, a killing that she considers unsolved. So, Patty, you have always maintained that you are innocent, that you did not murder your husband, Bill, in 1984. Prosecutors and police did not take your claims seriously. They didn't pursue evidence for that. So basically, you faced a very difficult legal challenge in proving your innocence. Now, we started this conversation talking about your letters. I'd like to have you read something from a letter dated September 15th, 1986, and it describes you meeting your attorney, Bob Baird, for an update on your case.
Right. I wanted to know what was going on legally, and he wanted to know what I was up to. So I quickly explained to him that I had enrolled in a business school called Platt Junior College. I take classes for half a day and work yard crew in the afternoon. Oh, and I added that in my free time, I teach art classes for recreation and am an editor for the prison newsletter. Bob's report was not nearly so clear-cut or promising. He lectured that winning an appeal is much like trying to catch lightning in a jar. I pictured myself standing on a hill during a wild electrical storm with the wind and rain whipping and thunder rolling over me, while I hold a mason jar high in the air, hoping lightning will strike so I can capture a bolt and thus go home. As Beard droned on, my heart felt heavier and heavier. And the movie in my mind of me returning triumphantly to my folks' ranch and scooping up my wildly ecstatic children became dimmer and dimmer. Mary, I'm so scared. Beard said that innocence is the worst defense, but it's the only one we have. What can I tell the kids? They have their hopes up so high. I can see that in many ways they are just treading water, waiting for me to come home so they can resume their normal lives. I need to help them move on without me, somehow.
That moment inspired the name of your book, Trying to Catch Lightning in a Jar, Letters from Prison. Why did you want that to be the representative of this first volume that you put out?
Because that's what I was trying to do all those years. Bob put that picture in my mind, and I'm a very pictorial person. I could see that. And I felt like we were all trying that. My kids, my parents, our friends, we were all trying to catch that lightning somehow. And a wrongful conviction is so hard to overturn. Somebody the other day asked me if there were a lot of people who were wrongfully convicted. And I said, more than you think, because so many people will plea bargain for a small sentence, do their time and get out, although they were never guilty of it. And I was dumb enough not to take the plea bargains, and so I had the big time. But you can't go back to court unless they have new evidence, and it's very difficult to get new evidence. These policemen didn't even take fingerprints in the house, and you can't go back and ask them to take fingerprints because it's long gone. Those opportunities are long gone. So that's why I named the book there, because it just was exactly what we were all trying to do.
Mm-hmm. You had written in that letter that your children, they follow what you do, not what you say, that you were thinking that they were just treading water. But Jane, you were doing more than just treading water. You were very young when your mother went to prison. And as an adult, you've spent many years advocating for her innocence and release. How did you take those steps? And did you have some concept of how difficult it would be to catch that lightning?
No, I don't think any of us could imagine how difficult the process would be and how long it would go on. We just knew that we couldn't give up on Mom. We couldn't give up on her, and that everyone in the family felt that way. Like my Aunt Mary and I, before the internet, we had paper petitions that we would ask people to sign in front of grocery stores. Like we were trying to get people to support the idea that a governor should look at her case. Somebody should be really looking at this case and changing her sentence or letting her out. And as the time went on, we did realize that we were probably never going to get her exonerated because they wouldn't test the DNA when we finally recovered the evidence box. It just never was going to work out the way we wanted it to. So as time went on, it was getting a clemency, getting a commutation. That would be a way to get her out. And that's what we were going to have to really focus on. So as my children grew and as time went on, I was just so focused on doing whatever Mom's attorney. It felt like we had a legal team between the attorney that had initially assigned her case to him as a law student and on representatives, state senators. We had people giving us ideas of ways to draw attention, different television shows to do, different interviews to do. I would try to do everything that I could do, anything that they asked. If they needed a family representative, I would do it. And that also made me feel like I was actively pursuing this. So that was a help to me personally, but also ultimately it ended up working. We finally tipped the scale and Governor Parson decided that this was a good decision to grant a clemency for her.
It was absolutely a group effort.
Yeah.
Yesterday at the prison, there was an older attorney and he said, I wrote a letter for you. And I said, I thank you, because it was that group effort to finally find the tipping point when we made a difference.
We had people
Everybody.
call and write letters. So many people joined in and wanted to help. So many.
I wonder what a book of those letters would look like.
Yeah. Like desperation.
Well, and also people who are demonstrating a kind of determination, right?
And speaking to Mom's character. You
Yes.
know, they wrote letters saying, I have met Patty Prewitt, or I have read about Patty Prewitt, or I have met one of her family members, one of us kids, different people in the family. And then that's how they would be like, well, we have to help this woman too, you know?
We're spending today's show listening to my recent conversation with Patty Prewitt. Before her release from prison in 2024, she was Missouri's longest-serving female inmate. I spoke with her and her daughter, Jane Prewitt Watkins, earlier this month. Patty, you are out of prison, but not entirely free because you are on parole, as you let the pilot of the plane know, the helicopter know. What does it mean to be on parole, for your everyday life?
Every day is not a big deal, but we live about 15 minutes from Kansas. So if somebody says, there's a new Indian restaurant, and I'll say, where is it? And it's in Kansas. So I have to have a travel permit to go anywhere out of the state. At first, it was just I had to stay in Jackson County. And in fact, one of my granddaughters wanted me to show me some grave sites of my family that was buried while I was in prison. And we ended up in Cass County, and I didn't even notice it till we were driving back, and I see a sign entering Jackson County. I was like, oh my gosh, I've been out of law here.
But it's just the very next town.
Yeah, it's so hard. But to stay in Missouri is really hard, too, because my best friend lives in Minnesota. There were so many times that you want to get out of the state to travel, and you have to get a travel permit, and it can't be done electronically. You have to drive to the parole office and get a piece of paper in this day and age. And you have to tell what you're driving, who's in the car with you, and you pay almost $31 a month, $30 plus shipping and handling, to be on parole. You have to pay for it. And it's just, I would love to get a pardon from Governor Kehoe so that I could travel to see my friends and do my business without having to spend the state's money with some clerk doing all this, typing up all this stuff. So that's our goal, because exoneration is not going to happen. The case is way too cold. But to win a pardon, that would be really nice.
And Governor Mike Kehoe is the 6th governor to whom you are making this appeal, seeking a pardon. Why do you think that it's been such a difficult thing to bring to reality?
The whole clemency process is completely not transparent. Nobody knows. We didn't know. We filed this commutation that I just won. We filed that in 2010. So for 14 years, we never heard anything. We didn't know if anybody was looking at it. We didn't know if we were close. It would be so nice if it was more of a transparent process, and I would love to see that have some kind of group, a bureau, that looked at these things and that you could get some kind of information about. And I'm certainly not the only one that has gone through this. I have been halfway successful with it.
When it comes to proving your innocence, is that something that is still one of your goals? Do you feel like you've already done enough?
I would love to prove that, but they wouldn't test the DNA. 2 courts said no. I see no way to be exonerated. I see no way this would be proven unless it was like a movie and somebody steps up and said, I did it, and this is why.
And Elaine, we would love to know who killed our father. I mean, to have justice for him also, for all of us. It would be to have her exonerated and have an answer to what happened would be an amazing thing. But at this point, I think we just need to focus on the pardon and try to be able to have, she got invited to the LA Book Fair in May. We have things that she wants to do that, and then we're at the mercy of getting things approved.
Patty, you're visiting St. Louis today ahead of a speaking appearance for a Women's History Month event this weekend that is sponsored by Missouri Professional Communicators. Jane, what is it like to see your mom now speak to these crowds of people after so many years of your having to relay the story.
It's great. I don't have to do it, Elaine. Instead of me speaking on her behalf or reading one of her poems or doing things like that, now I can just sit back and watch her perform, which she's public speaking. She's doing it. And I've gone to see many of her plays through Prison Performing Arts and things like that. So I'm used to seeing her on, performing. But it's amazing. She's funny and she's smart and people love her. And all the crowd is, we did an event for Keyway last weekend. Mom was the keynote speaker, and it was great. We raised a lot of money for a very good cause, and you were amazing. And I'm so proud, and I just get to be proud. And yeah.
And it's important to beat the drum for good organizations like
Yes.
Prison Performing Arts, Keyway, Journey for a New Life in Kansas City,
Washington Education.
Washington University Prison Education Project. All these are great entities, and I will stand up there and make a speech for any one of them.
Mm-hmm. I believe that the follow-up to your first book of letters, Patty, is already out, or it's about to be.
Yes, very soon.
And it's Catching Lightning, More Letters from Prison. And your first book covered 18 years in your time of incarceration. Where does the second book pick up?
Right at exactly where the first book ends, the second book picks up. So, because my publisher wanted to do it that way, and so we had so many letters, and my publisher it's Some People Press out of Oregon, and they work with incarcerated people. They teach classes there, writing classes, and 2 professors from WashU found them. And I love those people. They're just good people doing good things. And I am so blessed, Elaine, to be surrounded by good people doing good things. And not just plain old good things, big good things. And it's a wonder. That kind of energy, that kind of success, it's a wonderful thing. And this next book will be out pretty soon. I'm done with my part of it, and they're still working on it. I got a shortened version of my capstone stuck in it because I wrote about women in prison the last 60 years, and the publisher was like, I don't know, this is pretty academic. It's not your natural voice. And I said, this is important stuff. This is what's happened to women. This is important. So I got that in.
Yeah.
And the exit story.
The exit story.
Yeah.
Oh, the one that you shared with me.
Yeah, that's what we call that.
Yeah. The heart thumper.
Yeah.
Yes. As we close, is there any feedback or response that you have gotten to the book of letters in particular that exemplifies what you hope people will see as they read?
Yes, and in 2 ways. One of my friends who was locked up with me, she said it hurt so bad to read about it, and then she realized it was cathartic. And I said, oh my God, I was hoping that happened because I didn't want to hurt you about it. And then free people that know nothing about prisons, I've had so many people tell me they had no idea that people in prison are just people. They're not evil. They're people, especially women, who are worried about their children. That was my main goal, a window into the prison, because prisons are also a secret. There's no transparency. Nobody knows what's going on in prisons, and I wanted people to know the good and the bad that's happening in prisons.
That was Patty Prewitt, formerly Missouri's longest-serving female prisoner. Missouri Governor Mike Parson commuted her sentence in 2024, leading to her release after 38 years in prison. Prewitt is also the author of the children's book, A Little Person Like You Whose Mommy Goes to Prison. I spoke with Prewitt and her daughter, Jane Watkins Prewitt, earlier this month.
This episode was produced by Danny Wissentowski.
Audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr. Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.